In high school, I took a lot of AP classes, and almost 100% of the time I'd always be like the only black person in the entire class. And there's this thing that happens a lot after you get back a test or something. Everyone would like swap like tests, what our tests, like, what'd you get? Like, I got 80, I got 95. And I remember very distinctly, this must have been like my sophomore year or something, we got back our Scantrons and I got 100%, and I was really excited. And this guy next to me was like, what'd you get? And I said 100%, and he was like, no, it's not possible. And I was like, no, I did. And he was like, no, it's not possible, like, what are you talking about? And I remember and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I studied just as hard as you. And he's like, well, it's just like, I wouldn't think you, of all people, would get 100%. And that was just kind of a moment where I was just kind of like, it could have gone a lot of different ways, because maybe I'm a girl, or I don't know, he just didn't think I'm smart, but it was very obvious what he was hinting at. And that was the kind of moment where I was like, that was the kind of moment where I realized, like, I am treated differently because of the way I look.
Based off what someone does, they blame everyone of the same skin color of doing the same thing.
People say or have that image of black people as thugs and gangsters, obviously. So a black male, they were to look at these black males over here and just automatically think thug and gangster, as opposed to looking at a white male who dresses, I don't know, somewhat different, to fit into society and be accepted and not be targeted because you're acting appropriate, I guess. But that doesn't even make sense, because why, just because you wear different clothing, are you not a target?
Because there's not a lot of black people who go here, so I feel like situations meeting with people who aren't around black people a lot, it's really hard. It's harder, it's like different, because they're like, oh, like, I expected you to sound like this, or I expected you to act like that, and you're like, that's not who I am as a person.
I've been asked if I can dance well, if I can rap, if I play basketball.
Like, I never play basketball because I can't play basketball, so I always stay away from any sort of court or, you know, like basketball shoes or anything, because then the minute that I put on a pair of basketball shorts, someone's gonna be like, oh, hey, you play?
I told a lot, like, you act white, how I dress a lot of the time. Just try to stay away from basketball shorts, Jordans, you know, yeah, basketball shoes, the LeBrons, Kobe, and stuff like that. I've never worn a pick in my hair. I've never worn my jeans down low. That's like the stereotypical black man a lot of the time.
We're just like the only white people. They're no big deal. But if you're like the only black people are looking at you. People are looking at how are you acting. People are looking at are you focusing, because we are known to be just distracted and just having fun and all that stuff.
I mean, there's so much that a textbook definition can't really explain when you're talking about real people's lives and when you're talking about what actually happens in the world.
There's a lot more day-to-day stuff than people would assume. And it's very subtle.
I've just dealt, like, sometimes getting weird looks from people just because I'm walking down the street, you know, like wearing like a backpack.
Anytime I walk my dog, and if I'm in just like sweats and I have my hood up, I sometimes get a little cautious because of, you know, what happened recently in the news with Trayvon Martin. You know, he was wearing the hood and he looked apparently dangerous, and so sometimes I'll think about that and I'll go like, you know what, I'm just gonna wear an umbrella instead of just a hood. I want to make sure that I'm, you know, have, you know, my hands out, I'm not looking like I'm dangerous or like I'm about to, you know, go rob one of my neighbor's houses or something. So it's just little things where you just want to make sure that you don't look like you're up to something suspicious.
If you're wandering off in like at a mall by yourself, like, you'll notice that one of the like salespeople will be following you around the store to make sure you're not stealing anything. Just like little things like that, and it seems harmless, but it adds up.
I guess sometimes people don't really expect me to be very articulate. You know, sometimes I'm not, as, you know, if I ever get flustered. But, you know, like if I'm giving a speech or something, I notice that a lot of people will, you know, assume that I would have had, you know, some sort of accent or had some sort of, you know, tongue clicking or a bunch of likes or a bunch of head rolls and all of like Miss Sassy Pants or something like that. And I've had to, you know, try and be very just polite and calm and very clear and I always got a bunch of compliments like, wow, you're so well spoken.
It was how I was raised, not more of like a, I do it on purpose, it's just how I speak. So it's really stressful. I'm like, oh, like you sound really white when you talk, and you're like, I don't mean to. But how does one simply sound white when they talk? Like you're just like, I'm talking, I'm speaking.
Some teachers will like, they don't do it on purpose, like I don't think they do at least, but they try to, I feel like they try to like help African Americans or like minority people understand things that happen in school a little more than they do with white people.
And I've been told that multiple times by multiple teachers that like black students in most schools are not receiving the best grades.
For example, I'm in a club at school where I'm the only one who's African American or black, and it's really just interesting to see that.
Like what I think sometimes it is like when there's cliques going on, it's usually based off like what their interests are, and I think sometimes people don't want to be like the one person that's like different in a group of people.
I kind of like some part I kind of feel like it's my just duty to just stay in that club and do good in that club because I'm like representing my whole race there. If I don't do good, they'll be like, oh, again, black people just messing up everything, like always like they say.
When I hear people say privilege doesn't exist, I feel a little sorry for them. I feel sorry, but also a little worried that they're just not looking at the world the way it really is. And maybe they just kind of sheltered into that little everything is equal, which I'd like that to be the case, but it's not.
I think maybe where they're coming from is just they feel that when you say privilege exists to them, they feel like there might be being attacked because you're like, oh, like you have privilege and it's your fault that you're in a certain position. Like it's not your fault. It really isn't. That's like one thing I really want to emphasize on. Like it's not your fault necessarily, just the way our society is structured. Some people have more and some people have a lot less, and that's just the way it is. But a big mistake is not acknowledging it. That's like a really big thing. I think for a long time people are just ignoring it, and that's why racism and privilege has gone on for so long, because people just don't acknowledge it. And I think just acknowledging it is a huge thing.
Last year I was in a theater production, and for part of my costume I was playing a mermaid, so we had to have leotards under our costume that matched our skin tone, so that from a distance it looked like it was just our stomach, but it wasn't actually. And one of our costume director, she handed me a nude leotard, but it wasn't my nude. It was just very, very light tan. And she was like, this should work, right? And I looked at it, and I looked back up at her, and I went, actually? And for a second, I was thinking, you know what? I'll just take it, and I won't cause any problem. But then I realized I'm just causing a bigger problem that's more than just a leotard. So I stopped and I went, actually, I mean, this, you might consider this nude, but this is so not my nude. And so I held up the leotard and I held up my arm and I went, this is not me. And so she went, oh, yes, of course. So I'll go buy you one? And I was like, yeah, I think that would work a lot better than this. And she's like, oh, so I'll just get brown? And I was like, yeah, a nice nude would be fine.
But I'd say for people who want to make a change and look at things for how they really are, that starts with education and learning.
I definitely encourage people to form friendships with people who are different than them. I think that's something that it can be really beneficial to both people. I personally, from having friends who are white, I think it's really cool just to like swap stories about different experiences, and I think for most white people I've met, they're actually really curious just about like little things, just about like my life, and I'm curious about their life. I think it's something that can really be really beautiful, and I wish I saw more of, not just between a black and a white person, but of all races. I think it's really cool to surround yourself with different individuals and different backgrounds, just because I think it's more enriching to both of you guys, and it's really cool. Actually, I feel like it's something that can really make you grow as a person, and it makes it easier to speak up. I think that's probably where, when I said like trying to speak up for people, it's probably hard for someone to speak up for a black person because if they never had a friend, if they never had a black friend, or speak on race issues because they've never had a friend of a different race. So I think maybe that's a starting point, is maybe just try to befriend someone of a different race and just talking.